Right, good afternoon or evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'll wait until you confirm. Right, good. So I'm a little ill today. It's a little dizzy. Um, what I'd like to say is summarize everything we've done so far by building a login system. There will be a form where a user logs in with a username and password and gives them access to a protected page. And this will be, for the next, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, the final demonstration session, which uses this time never asked it really. Right, that's very close. Hello? 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 Test? Test.
Is this better? Right. Let me just double check. Is this sound better now? I've just lost the page. Wait. Right, much better. Yes, good. Right. So I have a very expensive lavalier microphone, personal microphone, that I have plugged in, but it wasn't using that one. It was using my computer's one. So hopefully this is clearer. Right. So where was I? I was saying that this will be the last, for a couple of weeks, perhaps 2 or 3 weeks, the last session in which I demonstrate solving a problem or coding a solution to something. For the next 2 or 3 weeks, and perhaps longer, but I would say about 3 weeks, that both Mondays and Tuesdays from 7 p.m. till 9:30 p.m. Will be available to both groups, Leeds and Osterley, and they'll be for one-to-one sessions. And they'll be by request, so you should request anytime Monday 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. or Tuesday 7 p.m. till 9:30 p.m. For a personal slot. And I don't expect everyone to want one, but those who do want one will probably get a little more time than the usual 10 minutes, so perhaps half an hour or 20 minutes or something, so maybe something more productive can be done. And if you don't get it 1 week, then I'll try and give you the another week. So over the 3 weeks, hopefully everyone will have at least half an hour of one-on-one time, so that people's individual issues that they're facing, we can address those a little better. Because I think this demonstration process is why it's good for catching people up in terms of the content. I think we also need some one-to-one time to make sure that no individual people are falling behind as well. So that'll begin from next week. And next week, another instructor is taking the course called Ed Wright, and he is it next week he's taking the course? I think it's a week after, but in any case, it'll be me and then Ed, and it'll be on SQL and MySQL, that one. Right, but in any case, let's get started. So as I was saying, this week will be a summary of all the PHP we've covered thus far, and I will summarize it by building a logging system. So a logging system is where we have some kind of, let's say, HTML page. So let's fill one of those out. So let's save this as protected.php. So we have some HTML page that contains some information that we want to protect from guest users. So people who haven't logged in, basically. So as I say, I'm a little ill, so this is going to probably take a little longer than usual. Body heading. Let's say this is a protected page. And let's put some, I don't know, what would be on a protected page? Well, perhaps a news feed or perhaps some bank details. My bank details are 000000123 123 123. Right, now we wouldn't want the average person who can browse to our website to be able to see this information. We want them to be able to log on first using known credentials. So let's just open that in a browser just to show you. So that's protected.php. I've saved that in htdocs. I have my Apache started, so I should be able to browse to that localhost protected, and I see the page. So let's check about the good. So there's no questions thus far. So what I want to do first of all is stop people seeing this page. Now, there's a function in PHP called exit. Now, exit basically terminates the outputting of the script from that point onwards. So if I call exit here, nothing else will be showing. So we'll look at that. On view page source, there's nothing there. That's because this function has been called before this output has started. So that's basically stopped anyone from seeing the content of the page. But now we need to make that exit conditional. We shouldn't exit if a person is logged in, and we should exit if they haven't. So let's just simulate someone having been logged in. So is logged in. We're going to call that true for now. And if I say if is logged in, if isn't logged in, so if not logged in, exit. And we should see it comes back because I've got logged in is true. If it's not logged in, exit. So we only exit if this is false, because not false would be true. Only runs if is logged in is false, i.e. not is logged in is true. Good. And what does this do? Well, I think it's in the notes, so I'll put recall exit terminates the script and all subsequent output. Right, good. Now we need to actually make this is logged in variable real, make it have a true or false value depending on some actual action. Well, let's leave that as true for now. So if it's not true, what do we want to do? Well, we want to probably, I don't know, if it is true, let's say we exit, but let's also say we include a login script. So we don't need an else there, actually. So if the person isn't logged in, we include a login script that handles the login stuff, and then we stop the output. So let's write that login script. So save login.php, and for now let's just put a form in here. So form method equals post. Let's have an empty action, so it posts to itself. Input name username, type text. Let's go for one for password as well. So we got username. Right. form. Right, so that's just our login page. For now, we're going to include that, basically copy and paste this into this point, i.e. before it exits. So we should see a login form if this is false. So show the login form. So let's make this true, and we'll just say we get the page. If we make it false, then this condition's true. So we get include and we get exit. We get the form, username and password. So let's add a button to that form, which I'd forgotten to do. Button type equals submit. And login. There we go. So we're on the protected.php page. We're not on the login page. We're on the protected.php page, and that's included on the protected.php page conditionally. So it's only there if this variable is false. So if I set it back to true, it's not included, so we get the original. Okay. What we could even do is move this into, let's say, another one, say protected content.php, and then say else include content.php. And we're either including login or we're including content, depending on whether someone's logged in or not. But I think we'll just reverse that. We won't bother with that. We'll just stick to this system for now. Right, so we've got a login form being included if a person isn't logged in. Now we need to actually deal with the login form. So we need some code in our login.php that's going to handle what happens when someone presses submit. Well, when someone presses submit, then if not empty post, someone presses submit, then the post won't be empty because the post comes from the form. So if the form has been submitted, the post won't be empty, i.e. it'll be not empty. Not empty. Right. What do we do with a non-empty post? Well, for now, let's just make sure this is all working. We can just echo out, we can just print our post. That'll be the simplest thing to do. Show that we're actually getting some information. So let's run this. Let's run Michael, password Burgess. Print R, username Michael, password Burgess. In fact, let's change the type of this form to password. Type of this input to password, so we get a nice dots other than the plain text. So right, so that's what we're doing so far. We're just saying if it's not empty, then print it. But we're not actually doing anything to log someone on, so we need to do something to log someone on. Well, how do we do that? Well, that requires sessions, because remember that HTTP is stateless. It doesn't remember any previous requests. So if we want to remember someone has been logged on, then we need to store their information in something that persists across several requests. Well, what persists across several requests? A session does. So if we type session start there, and that says send a cookie to the browser to identify a particular user. So now the user has a particular identification number that they get sent, and they will send this number back every time they load the page. Then PHP uses this number, uses this ID to associate the user with a particular set of information called a session. Right. So now we have session. Well, what are we going to do with session? Well, basically, just add post to it. And then let's just print our session to show you that working. Now this plus equals is something I haven't introduced before, and it's somewhat rarely, well, it's more commonly used these days, but still quite rare. And when you add together two arrays, so this is adding in together two arrays, session is an array and post is an array. So x plus equals y, where x and y are arrays, basically fills out x with things that are only in y. So if post has username and password in it, then those will be added to session. So it's like merging together two arrays. It puts the values of post inside session. So let's print our session, show you that working. So if I type Michael Burgess, and I've got a syntax error on line 7. That's because I haven't closed PHP. So Michael. Oh, it's probably because it's remembered my previous set. So we can go with that for now. Hang on, let's have a look. What question? Oh. I don't know what that question means. So I'll just leave it there for now and you can explain. Right, so we could use plus equals here, but there's a more there's a more common function that people use. It's called array merge. And array merge, rather than plus equals, will always force together two arrays. It will always, so array merge x, y means overwrite anything in x with whatever is in y. So if y has a username and password, then those will always be jammed into session. So your session will always get the username and password that post has. Whereas the plus equals that I just used will only put the username and password in post into session if it doesn't already have them. So the array merge is like an overwriting, where the plus equals is just a more gentler thing. It says if you don't have it, then give you it. Well, let's use array merge for now and see what happens. Michael test. I was expecting that to change. I wonder why that's not working. Well, let's do it manually. Session username equals post. Username session password equals post password. Do this for now in our session. That's the same operation as the array merge should have been doing. So we're taking the values in post and we're shoving them into session. Let's have a look. Michael test. There you go, that's working. So we'll have to put a little note about array merge and the plus equals there, and I'll have to investigate exactly why that wasn't working. But I'll leave a note in the bottom of the file as part of the solution that you can look over, and I'll explain more when I figured out what's going on there. I would expect array merge to always work. Maybe I put the argument order the wrong way around. Maybe it should be post session. Possibly. But for anyway, we'll do it manually like this for now. A little more explicit anyway. Saying put the username of post into a username of session, password of post into a password of session, and then we're just printing out the session. Right. Good. So what we've done now is, even if, hang on, so we can put the print R session anywhere we like. We could put it in protected. So let's in fact move the session start to the protected. Right. So we're starting the session in the protected file rather than the login file. Doesn't really make much of a difference, but it does allow us to use the session variable in this file. So we can print our session here. What we'll find, I wonder what that is. I can save this. What we should find in the protected file is that session it's because I'm exiting, isn't it? It's because I'm exiting. That's a shame. Put it there then. What we should find, there you go, session has a username and password. Now, session has a username and password. Note, it retains that username and password when I refresh the file. So I'm refreshing this file, and session still has that username and password fields because it is remembered that I have logged in. How is it remembered that I've logged in? Well, I entered my username, Michael. I entered my password, test. I pressed login. What happened is that information was stored in a file on the web server called a session file. That file persists across requests, so it's remembered. And the browser sends a particular cookie to the web server to associate this particular browser session, this particular use of this website, with that particular file that the web server has remembered. So the web server now remembers username and password. So I have, as soon as I press submit or login here, I have a session variable which remembers the particular details I entered in that login form. So what I can do now is, rather than say is logged in equals false, I can say is logged in is equal to, let's have a look, session password equals, let's put a constant here, constant correct password. Let's make the correct password test. Let's say if the session password is equal to the correct password, then I have logged in. Okay, so this is logged in here. It's going to be true or false because this is a comparison. It's comparing. Comparison. So recall, this is a comparison. Comparison. X equals Y is true when X is Y, and false otherwise. So I am logged in if the password in my session is equal to the correct password, and I'm technically not logged in any other situation. So even if I've entered a wrong password in the form, my session will still have a password in it, but it won't be the correct one. Right, so let's have a look then. I've already entered, so if I enter Michael and test, I see the protected page. So there you go. So there's the protected page. If I go back, I can still see it. I don't have to log in again. That's because my session remembers that I've entered test once. So I entered it once some number of requests ago, but it remembers the value I entered. So this test here is always true. Now, if I want to log out, let's go for here. Let's have a look. Let's look at a logout function. Let's put a link here. Ahref equals question mark logout equals true. Log out. Now, what do you think this link is going to do? So to refresh this page, I now have a logout link. If I click on this logout link, it adds question mark logout equals true to the URL. Right? So what am I going to do with that? Well, I can say if is set get logout, then session destroy. That clears all the session information. Right. I've got a single page here, protected.php, that may have in the get information, it may have a parameter called logout. If it has that parameter, so if that parameter is set, then we call the session destroy function, which clears all the session information. So if I go to the page without the login thing at the top, if I just keep going there, nothing happens to my session. It still retains all the information it had. But if I click on this link, suddenly my URL has a logout equals true. So if I go back to the page, now my session is empty. In fact, it says undefined index password, meaning that since I've cleared the session, it doesn't even have a password there anymore. So I need to make sure that I say if is set session password, then is logged in, is the test that if the password is the correct password. Now, if the session password isn't set, then is logged in must be false. If the session password isn't there at all, then it's clear I haven't logged in. Right, so let's try that. So I should get rid of the error now. Let's try logging in with a bad password. So Michael test doesn't do anything because it comes back to the page. It has session information in it, but the session isn't the correct password. So is logged in is false. So it includes the login file, exits, and we're done. But if I put Michael and test in, he said, it's maybe because I got logout equals true there. There you go. Put Michael and test in, then I get the protected page. So let's log out. There you go. Let's go back to the page. Go. Then let's type in test. Back to the page. Done. So what we should probably do to stop us having to refresh the page to get the actual details is once we've logged in. So once we've done this, we can issue something called a location header. Now, a location header is basically a redirect. It redirects the person back to this page. It's basically a refresh. So that function header sends a header to the browser. It sends a piece of information to the browser that says, once you've done this, once you've put the username and password in, basically just refresh the page. So let's try that. I log out. There we go. I go test. I log in. There you go. It's refreshed the page, so I get the protected page. I don't have to come back and refresh it myself. Right. Let's clean this up a bit. There's a little bit higgledy-piggledy what's going on. So let's use some functions to do that. So this bit here, this piece of code here, that's testing the session password with a correct password and telling us if the session password matches the correct password. So we could put that in a function. So let's create a file called, we can call it functions.php. And the first function we're going to create is we're going to move this into a function called check password. Right. This is going to return is logged in. There we go. So if we call the check password function, we either get true if it matches, or we get false if they haven't logged in. So that's a little easier to read, hopefully. So we get is logged in equals check password. Right. Now, what's this doing? Well, this is saying if they're not logged in, then include the login page and stop running. So we can move that into a function. We can say function require login. So if they're logged in, now we could put in a little, we could either put in an input parameter here that takes the is logged in, or we could just call check password from inside require login. Is logged in equals check password. So the require login calls the check password function, which either gives us true or false. If it's false, you include the login page and stop. If it isn't false, you just do nothing. Right. So you can go require login. Right, and what's this doing? Well, that's saying if there's a logout query parameter in the URL, destroy the session. We can put that into a function. Function log out. Yep. If there's a logout, so we should probably call this check logout because it's not always going to log it out. It's going to say if there's a logout parameter in the get, then log out. So we'll call that as well. So require login and check log out. Now we probably want the logout function to refresh the page as well. So we'll send a header that says to the browser, go to this location. The location is protected.php. That's basically going to refresh the page when we've logged out. Okay, so we've got three functions there. Any more? The login page. Well, this looks like a bit of code we could put inside a function. What does that do? Well, that takes the post information, the form information, and puts it inside the session, and then redirects or refreshes the page. So we can put this in here, and we can say that's going to be a login function. Function login. Yep. So if the form isn't empty, form information inside the session information, and then redirect. So login. I'll leave that at the bottom of this file, so as a reminder to explain this. Right, and then in here we just go login. Good. And we could even put that just straight inside here, but we won't because it's a little cleaner to leave the login form as a separate little piece of code. But there we go. So I'll put the comments just at the top. Right. Let's just double check all this is working still. So if I refresh this, oh, here we go, require login. What's happened here? I haven't included the functions. So include functions.php. All the functions are. Refresh this now. And I've got an error. Line 4. It doesn't look like an error to me, but it might be that constants aren't allowed inside functions, which is a shame. So I'll just put it outside of a function, doesn't really matter. There we go, protected page. If I log out, I get the form. If I log in, I get the protected page. If I log out, I get the form. Log in, get the protected page. If I refresh, I still get the protected page because it remembers I've logged in. If I log out and refresh, I get the form because it forgets, because I've destroyed the session, I've cleared the session, so it has no memory, no knowledge of me having previously logged in. Right. Good. So let's, I think, break that down a little bit, because the whole development process there was a little bit higgledy-piggledy perhaps. And let's just see what happened. So, where did we start? So let's look. Let's call this steps.php. Step number one. I wrote the protected page content, i.e. this is protected. Right, that's the stuff I want to protect. All this in, let's put this in HTML comments for now. So let's leave this as an HTML file. Right, so I wrote the protected page content. 2, I put in a condition that would hide the content if a person hadn't been logged in. So add condition that stops the page being shown if some condition isn't met. For example, I said if the person isn't logged in, that's the condition. So if and I'll just put a dummy thing in here. Logged in, put in false for now. I will put it as true for now so it doesn't break anything. Just pretend they're logged in. Right, now what did I do? Third step. Step 3. Create a login form that will be displayed if the person isn't logged in. So I create a little form with input. Bloody hell, username. There we go. So it's a dummy little form for now. That will be displayed if the person isn't logged in. Step 4. I made the form work. How? Well, I added the formed information, i.e. post, to the persistent, let's just say remembered, session. How we get the form to work? So we add its information to something that will be remembered. Step 5. I asked if the form information added to the session was correct. I said, in other words, I revised the condition in step 2 to be more accurate, i.e. to ask if the session information contains the correct password. Now everything works at that point. It says we've got a protected page. That protected page is only shown if some condition is met, and if the condition isn't met, we show a login form instead. And if the login form is submitted, we add the information to the session, and then we revise the condition to test if that session contains the correct password. So we've got the whole thing working. If the session has the right password, we show the protected page. If it doesn't, we show the login form. That's the basic structure of a login system. If the login condition is met, you show the protected page. If it isn't met, you show the login form. Now, step 6, however, was to tidy this process up. So tidy the code up. How? Break the sections, i.e. 1 to 5, approximately 1 to 5, into their own functions. Make the whole process read a little clearer. So if you look at the final page now, it's a little clearer what's going on. You start a session, you require them to log in, and you check if they've logged out, and then you show the thing, right? So that's reads a little clearer. so it's easier to understand what's going on than the first version. So step 6 was to tidy the code out, break it into sections, break them into their own functions. And what are the other functions? Well, let's look at these functions and I'll describe them. So check password, require login, and check logout. So we've got IE, check password, require login. Come on. And require login, check logout, and login. And let's just see what each of these do. Now, note, all of those functions do not take any parameters. So there's no input to any of these functions. None of these functions have any input. They just do a job. Check password tests the session to see if it contains the correct password. That's all it does. The check password function says, does the, I don't know why that's doing that, whatever, does the password, does the session contain the right password? So that's basically 5. Require login, what does that do? Find out. It checks the password, and if it doesn't match, includes the login page. It checks password. It checks password, and if it doesn't match, includes the login page. Right, what else do we have? We've got check logout. Check logout tests to see if we have logout equals true. Well, just log out. You look at anything. Logout equals true in the URL. If we do, clear session. So it clears all the session information. And finally, we've got login. There we go, the login function. The login function puts the form information post into the session. Let's have a look if you can identify each of these as a step. So require login, that's basically step 3 approximately. Let's see if we have the logout in the URL. Well, I didn't actually add that step, so that's a new step. Step 7. And put the form in the thing, that's step 4. Okay, so we just made all these steps a little clearer. Step 4, step 5, step 7. Right. Now that's a little difficult. So the whole process there was a little complex, if you like. But hopefully you followed it. But if not, I'll write up all of this with more notes, and this will form another section of the walkthrough. But to summarize, we started out with a protected page, just some content that we wanted to hide. Then we said, if some condition isn't met, do not show this page. The condition here is that a person's session contains the right information. So if a person's session contains the right information, we show the page. If the session doesn't contain the right information, we don't show the page. And the way that we refrain from showing the page is by calling the exit function, which stops the whole thing running. So if the session contains the right information, show the page. If it doesn't, call the exit function, and that stops everything from going out. Then, how did we get the right information into session for that test to work? Well, we created a form where if the form was submitted, the particular information in that form, the username and the password, was put into the session. So the session contains the right information if a person has filled out the form and pressed submit. Now, how do we get the form to display? Well, if the condition is met, show the page. If the condition isn't met, do two things. Show the login form and terminate the rest of the output. So we show the login form if the session doesn't contain the right information, and if it does, we show the page. So let's just show you that whole thing working. So if I go to protected.php, my session is empty. I have nothing in my session, so I'm shown a login form. Now if I enter the wrong password, test, but wrong, I press login, and nothing happens. Why? Because my session doesn't contain the right information. If I put test here, I press login, now my post information, my form information will be put into my session. My session will contain the right information, so the test will pass, exit won't be called, and the rest of the output will continue. Like that. Now the only thing we haven't really seen here, or the only completely new information, was this call to the header function. Now the header function here, these header calls, basically tell the browser to change page, to redirect it, to move to a new location. So here's the location I wanted to move to. Now the location I'm asking it to move to is just the page I began with. So that just means refresh the page. So when I've pressed the login button, refresh the page, and when I've pressed the log out button, refresh the page. So when I press this log out button here, and it refreshes the page and it shows me the login form again because the session doesn't contain information, so the test hasn't passed. Right? Well, hopefully there'll be some questions about this because I think that was a little complex. But in any case, I hope you follow along. So just to remind you, this will be the last demonstration session for 2 or 3 weeks. Subsequent Mondays and Tuesdays are open to everyone from 7 p.m. till 9:30 p.m. I would encourage that in one of those 3 weeks at least, that everyone in both groups has booked a session. I wouldn't necessarily say you have to do it every week because I would like each person to get a reasonable amount of time so I can work with individual people, find out what their strengths and weaknesses are, and hopefully if you have some weaknesses, I can set particular problems for you to do that are tailored to you, and then we can work through those and you can focus on what you're struggling with. And then at the end of those 3 weeks, we'll probably go back to demonstration sessions again so that we are keeping pace with the official schedule. Right, well, with that, I'll end the session and wait for any questions that arise. Good evening.